Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to today's episode of On the Move. I am Jennifer Carpus-Remain, Executive Director at TMSA, and we are featuring Jennifer Shaffer, Vice President of Marketing and Public Relations at IMC Logistics. Unfortunately, the day that we recorded this episode, my computer did not want to work well. We still went through with the interview and were able to save the audio, but we're not able to save the video, unfortunately. But we loved this interview with Jennifer. She had a lot of great things to say. So we wanted to still bring you the audio content for the episode. So thank you for tuning in. I have since fixed my computer, so hopefully this will never happen again. But thank you, Jennifer, for appearing on the show and everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to On the Move, a show where we share transportation, sales, and marketing success stories. I am Jennifer Carpus-Remain, Executive Director at the Transportation Marketing and Sales Association, which is a trade nonprofit educating and connecting marketing and sales professionals in transportation and logistics. And today I'm excited to have on the show a fellow Jennifer Shaffer, VP of Marketing and PR at IMC Logistics. How you doing, Jennifer?
I'm good, Jennifer. This is going to be funny having this podcast, Jennifer and Jennifer. So glad to be here today. Thank you.
So you've had a pretty long journey in marketing, PR, and then just curious how you got here, how you started at IMC, and where you're looking to go.
Oh gosh, I was thinking when you asked that question earlier, it was like it's been such a long road. I am from a small town in Kentucky, and I got my education at a local state college. And out of college, I was like, okay, let's hit the ground running. And there were no agencies in this small town, and no PR, no marketing. Everybody knows everybody. That's not really needed. They don't need that there. So I did a little bit on the side with things that, I worked an admin job and did a little bit on the side until my husband and I relocated to the Memphis community, which does have a lot of agencies. Unfortunately, you got to really network with them. You got to know people. And this was a long time ago. So I, at the end of the day, needed a job. And so I ended up going to work for a 3PL. And there started as an admin and did, what I think maybe some people do start out unless they get an internship. They start an administrative position and they just start doing a little bit of, creativity and marketing and building relationships while you're there, and got the attention of the CEO there. And she ended up slowly promoting me over the years, and I ended up working with their VP of sales and worked for her. And over the years, we built the sales and marketing department at that 3PL. And I ended up spending 15 years there. So if you've done the math, you could tell quickly how old I am. But, after 15 years, I happened to have lunch with my boss, who is the CMO here, and have known IMC for years as a longstanding drayage provider in the Memphis community and nationwide. And I've just known her because, the logistics industry is large, but it's small. It's the same people. You see the same people. You meet the same people. And we just sort of stayed in contact over years. And she, invited me to lunch, and next thing I know, I'm here. And so I've been here almost 4 years now. So I've definitely had exposure to all aspects of transportation. And I will say this, I think over the years, I don't even know that people get into logistics on purpose. I'm sure there are, but I think a lot of people just sort of fall into it, and it gets into your skin, you start thinking the intricacies of moving things from A to B, and how that goes, and how you're marketing and positioning that to your customers and selling it and getting, building relationships with those journalists. And I think it's just, I think it's here. I think, where am I going to go? I'm going to be here. And I think I'm going to stay in this industry, and I don't think I'll ever leave. I think I love it too much. It's something new every day. And as I spoke to a couple high school kids and stuff like that when you go speak to their classes, and it's somewhat recession proof in a way. And so I think, I think I will always be in this industry. And so I enjoy it and don't see myself going anywhere.
I think it definitely, like, once you're here, it becomes a part of your blood and you don't want to leave.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's great. And I loved hearing that story. I do think so many people here end up here because of luck, I guess you could say. And so,
I'm not sure I knew what
we're-
logistics was. I don't even know that I knew what logistics was in college, but you end up in it, and next thing you know, you're talking about all aspects of the supply chain. So,
absolutely. Any aspects of the supply chain. And we're rounding out the end of Q1 already here in 2025, which seems crazy. But what kinds of trends are you seeing that are shaping the industry now?
Well, of course, everybody's talking about AI, and I feel like AI is sort of a dirty word. Like, people don't want to talk about it, and I think that as a trend, I think there's a place for it. I think you have to figure out where it is in your toolbox. For us, we have used it for some inspiration for creative. Like, we are trying to come up with this really complicated image, and we're trying to figure out how we could get it photographed with, a depot and a truck and maybe a train beside it. And we need a lift in there, and you put AI in it, or you put it in AI rather, and it'll spit the image out. Is it what we're going to use? No. But is it enough that I can, like, hand a photographer or hand somebody on a creative team, this is what I need, only I don't need it to look fake, right? And so I think that there's a place. I think we use it on social media a little bit for some content inspiration. It's never 100%. For us, it's never going to replace, traditional writers who they write for the logistics industry and they know their stuff. There's no replacement for us in that regard. There's no replacement for traditional journalism and working and having those relationships with, having that PR relationship with the journalist. But I think if you could find a place in your toolbox for it, I don't think people have to worry about it. I think it's not something that's going to take over jobs. I think maybe it'll just make you a little more efficient. But I think that you're always going to need writers. I think you're always going to need PR people. You're going to need journalists and so forth. The other thing I'm seeing is the use of a lot of influencers. And I don't know. I think the jury's still out. We have definitely worked with an influencer or two at IMC, and it was some success. But I know there was a story recently where a publication went in and replaced some of their journalism team with influencers. And I'm not sure. I don't know. I feel like traditional upstanding journalism that is going to do all the fact checking, is going to do all the homework to make sure that the story that they're putting out is correct and legit, just can't be replaced with an influencer. So I'm not sure. The jury's still out on that one. And I'd be interested what other members would say. Be curious how they're using them and if they have any success too.
I appreciate your importance of traditional journalism and those pieces that are put together. Trained journalist, that's where I started my career. That's what I went to college for. And also why I love doing this podcast, because I don't get to do that kind of stuff as much. So, like, the interview piece really keeps that part of my brain going. But I do think, I was actually talking to someone recently that it's like anyone can write on the internet, but there's still value in being able to find the places you can trust that is doing those fact checks, that that the information is being there. And I had something that has stayed with me. One of my editors in the past said, it can take you like years, decades to build up your reputation. It can take one thing to tear it down. And so, because I always wanted to move fast, I wanted to confirm the stories and get them out there. And that has really stayed with me, is really like, thinking through, like, yes, of course you want to beat everybody else to the story, but you want to make sure that story is correct. And
Right.
there's then places in between that you can do, like, oh, this is a developing story, this is the information that we have,
Right.
stay tuned. And so, like, that's where we would work on that. But I think that's incredibly important to consider, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to influencers, ultimately they're paid to say what you want them to say, right? And so I think that there's still value in that traditional journalism, and I hope that they still see value in like traditional PR, because like we had a situation where maybe something changed just a little bit in a comment that was something changed in the landscape. We'll talk about sustainability for a minute, but and I followed up with a journalist and was like, hey, I just want you to know, like, this is what's happened. This is what's changed. And they appreciated it so much, because we probably could have just avoided it. But I wanted them to know, like, hey, what we said last week is not necessarily what we're saying this week because of X, and I think that I don't know that you would get that follow up from an influencer. And I don't know you'd even have that relationship with a journalist and an influencer. So there's a place, probably like AI. There's a place for influencers, and it's just very customer focused. And so I don't know. The jury's still out. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's something to be said to have multiple tools in your tool belt, but you don't want to get rid of the ones that you had and the ones that are tried and true, and building those relationships with media partners, knowing you can trust what you can do, and then bringing in some kind of new age things or what you can do to grow upon. I think is just expanding your reach, but I don't abandon that have worked really well.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And then, so I'm excited to also announce that you'll be one of our speakers at Elevate this year, and your topic will be talking about sustainability. Talk about it at Elevate.
Well, it's ever changing, and you have to have your head on a swivel, because things in the sustainability landscape are changing. I mean, we at IMC invested in it years ago. We said this is something important to us, something we're going to do. And so from a marketing and PR standpoint, we've been marketing and, working with journalists on sustainability topics for years now. But it changes all the time. Even the most latest administration has changed some of the rules, and some of the technology has changed. And so, when I sent that over, I called it the highs and lows of marketing sustainability, because it is. It's constantly changing. Everybody wants to say that they're green, but really, are they going to put their money where their mouth is? And as the rules change, you have to know from a marketing standpoint, like, what are the rules today? And what do we need to be telling customers? What do we need to be telling, the industry? Where do we stand on it? And, and it's just, you have to have that, and you have to be able to ride that. A lot of idioms here. Little girl from Kentucky, I cannot help it with my sayings, but it's not as easy as saying we're sustainable. You are making investments. Do you know the rules? Do you have a partner who is up to date on the rules? We're getting calls from customers saying, like, hey, the clean fleets rule has dialed back. So what are you doing about your hydrogen fleet? Well, you still have the indirect sourcing rule. And then they're going, what's that? Well, you have to be able to explain that to them. And you have to be able to, articulate that. And you have to be able to, like, present the data and say, hey, here's the data on how we're cutting down carbon emissions. These are things people didn't even think about 3 years ago when they bought electric trucks. They were just like, we've got an electric truck. Well, now let's talk about really the effect that it's making on the environment. And I think that, you just have to be able to ride that wave, if you will. And so when we're talking about that, the other thing that I wanted to share is that when you're talking about environmental topics, people are very passionate about it. Okay. They are very passionate, whether they're pro-electric, they're very passionate, whether they're pro-hydrogen, and you have to be able to temper those people who are passionate, and be able to handle, when people are saying, well, what color hydrogen do you guys use? Because it's not friendly, or if this is why electric is better. I was at a conference last week, a guy spent 30 minutes telling me why electric was the wave of the future over hydrogen. And you just have to be able to have those conversations, because everybody thinks they're right. And you have to be able to, how are you going to position yourself as a company, as a sustainable provider, and be able to say that, this is one of our core values, is we want to be a sustainable provider. Here's the why, and here's how ever changing we have the most recent information. We're the expert in it. And, this is how you're going to sell it to your customers. And so it's a lot, and it takes, like I said, you have to have your head on a swivel to be able to make those changes as the sustainability and the rules change and the states change and stuff like that. And so, that's why I called it the highs and lows. And so, yeah, we hopefully will speak to that, and people need to know, what to do in the situations when all the things are ever changing.
Absolutely. I think it's definitely an evolving area. It's something that people are really paying attention to. And you need to pay attention to, because it is changing. It'll say at the federal level, it'll change at the state level, it'll change at the international level. And so if you're participating in these practices, or just needing to know what you need to be doing at any given time, paying attention to those trends is incredibly important. And then I loved thinking about it from like a marketing side, or even a sales side. How do we then educate our customers, our prospective customers, on what's going on right now, and how are we reflecting our business practices because of it? So I think it's going to be a really great session. Excited to have you at Elevate talking about it. If people are looking to register for a conference, I'm going to pop up a QR code for them. Hopefully they can see it. I hope my internet seems to be a little choppy today, but I can still hear you talking. So I'm hoping that everything is working great for everybody that is listening or watching the show. I'm curious. So you've been to Elevate in the past. Is there anything that you're looking forward to this year in Austin? Will we go there this year?
Well, I haven't been in a couple of years because it didn't line up with some other things that I had going on. But I will say, as far as a networking and just getting other peers in the industry, I have found vendors there. I have found great resources there, just in like being able to email someone and say, hey, we met. I want to ask you a question about something you said. I think from just building that network, it's great. And I think that the education is there, that, you guys do a great job in putting together a great agenda. I think I always come back with fresh new ideas to share with the team. And then, like I said, just really making those contacts that can't be replaced, that you're meeting those people in person. Last time I attended, I think was probably 2 years ago. We signed a vendor right after that, and I love her, and I don't know that I'll ever let her go, because we've been able to work with them since then. And I don't know that I would have ever, found them on my own. And I don't know that I would have, you can't tell a lot of people by by a website, but talking to someone in person, it's just different. And I think that it really attracts a great group of people. So I'm looking to see what everybody else is dealing with in the industry, and what the latest technology and what everybody else think is the disruptors, then and obviously learn something new. So I'm pretty excited.
Absolutely. And we kind of our show is in June, so we come at the end of trade show season, but I would say we're right smack dab in the middle of it now. From a PR perspective, what do you think are the best techniques companies could and should be leveraging for that pre, at, and post show conference season? What should they be doing when they're at shows? What should they be releasing? What should they be talking about?
Well, from a PR standpoint, it's always helpful if you have some big news to release at a show, but that, you don't always have that luxury. I would say if you could position yourself months in advance, and I think it's always the best option is to get yourself on a panel as a speaker. I don't mean me personally, but I mean any of your executives within a company. Anytime that your company can be on a panel, you're automatically viewed as an expert. for any of those people who are attending. So I think if you could put your PR efforts probably 6-8 months in advance, think about that planning as much as a year in advance, and talk about that while you're there. Even if you don't, there's journalists who are always attending these trade shows. I think it's great to even just try to have meetings with them as far as just to build that relationship. Try to be meeting with the organization. So next year when they are putting their agenda together, they're looking for you as the expert, because all those things are just validating your company. And then, this is going to sound dumb, but I think anything that you can do that can attract attention to if you have a booth there. So, I've seen stuff like puppies, and one of my favorite things was a candy bar that they had all kinds of candy. And so it sounds silly, but those things get traffic there, and it opens up the conversation. The previous, where I was last weekend, I was out in LA, and we had a churro bar, and it sounds a little ridiculous, but we literally had people approach our booth because they smelled them. And so they were like, we smell the churros, come over here. And then who's IMC while we're talking, so we got to tell them about it while they're cooking, making their little churro and put the sauces and all that stuff on it. And it's just anything that you think will draw people in to those. And so that to me is kind of the fun stuff where you're talking about what's going to get people to our booth. And then post, you always have to follow up. I mean, you have to follow up. And that may not be the favorite thing, but you have to follow up with everybody who came by, send them a thank you note, put them in your CRM, and just, continuing that conversation, even if you're handing it off to a salesperson, just the follow up is key. Otherwise, why'd you even go? Right. Because, everybody's wanting to get customers. So you have to just follow up on that.
I agree. With all of those points, I think having a speaker, having a panelist, having something to promote that you're at the show definitely helps in your pre-show promotions, because it stands easier to promote, like, come watch this panel, or come do this, come engage with us here, as opposed to be like, oh, I'm going to the show, who wants to hang out? Like, you can do those posts, but it's more impactful if you have something like really specific to point to. I love how you were talking about the smell of the churro bar, because I always find the popcorn booth, hands down.
Yes.
My kiddo is obsessed with popcorn, so that smell just like naturally appeals to me because I'm so used to it. But so I would say, yeah, for sure, anything that think of all of the senses, like what interest people, but that smell would be really important. I was at a trade show a couple months ago at this point, but they had little macaroons, like the really fancy cookies, and I loved them.
Oh, yeah.
And I straight walked past the booth, turned around, came around, went down the aisle and back around to just be like, tell me what you do. Give me your cookie. Yeah. I love those macaroons, and it was something like different that I don't see at a lot of trade shows or at a lot of booths. So anything that like kind of sets you apart there. And yeah, I agree. They were so visually appealing to their booth was like a light sage and a pink, and the macaroons matched the booth, which I was very, very interested.
Are they attending Elevate?
I'm trying. I am doing my post-show follow-up with them. But yeah, it was something that was really cool. And like that really stood out to me, especially those brands. I don't even know if they meant to do that, but that was something I definitely noticed as like a marketing person, that their branding matched. So
yeah, I don't know if anybody else does this, but always like the last day of the show, maybe the last 2 or 3 hours, where it's probably just all us marketing people left anyway. I walk around to every single booth and I scope out what they've done just in case I didn't see it, because there's some people doing some really cool things, and I go through and I even talk to them and I even say, what's the coolest thing you've seen here? And sometimes it's like, oh, this guy was like, they were giving away a little cardboard container full of Lindt chocolates. Well, I was too late for that, but I could get I get it, And I know that they're going to be at Elevate. One of our members, they were there. They had a deck of cards that was customized to all modes of transportation. I thought that was really cool. But it's kind of like you need this shtick, right? You have to figure out what's going to attract people to your booth, because everybody's standing there smiling. They've got their little brochures out, but it's got to be something, something that's going to bring people in, and figuring out what that is. And so I'm always open to ideas, and I go out looking for it. At the end, I go out, people are packing things up. What's the coolest thing you've seen? And a lot of times they'd love to tell you about it.
Yeah, especially at that end of show. I remember when I was back in my booth days, and when people would come and try to sell me stuff, at when the show opened, I'm like, can you come back on day 3 when business is slower? Like you said, those last couple hours of show, when you're like, then you want to talk, it's just the marketing people left. But yeah, I always get inspired. I do the same thing, but at a show level. I walk around and I think there's some things in the huge shows that will just never be applicable to TMSA, but some things like we have a sustainability sponsor this year at Elevate. It's Mission Advisory, and she's going to have water bottles by our water stations. And that was something that I picked up from another show. I was like, oh, like we could totally do that. I make sure that there's water everywhere, but I don't have a water bottle sponsor. So things like that, getting your inspiration from things that are already there, and how can you make it applicable to you, I think is really important when you're at trade shows, for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. I actually like that idea, because the trade show I was at, they had these tiny little cups, and we kept saying, wish we just had a bottle to refill. So I think that's a great idea.
Well, I'm really excited for that to come around as well. Yeah, because we should all hydrate more, because I know that I'm always drinking coffee at trade shows. So if there's water there, that will only help me in my hydration. So, and we've also talked about how stressful trade shows can be, and being on all of the time. And I do think it's really important to find strategies to get through them, especially for people who are a little bit more introverted. So I always say, I'm an extroverted introvert. I can turn it on when I need it, but then I need so much time to decompress. What are your best tips, best strategies for people who might get a little bit more overwhelmed at a show?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because it's like I feel the exact same way. Even when you're like, oh, I want to interview you, I was like, why? Me? And because I feel like I'm the introverted extrovert, and it's like a switch, right? You get through the show and you're like, okay, let's do this. Honestly, if there's time, I think at the end of the night, I think retreating to your room and door dashing food and just settling into whatever you want to watch that day is totally okay. I think that, I like to call it shaking hands and kissing babies, all day. It can be a lot for some people, especially when you're talking about the show is that last weekend, or last week was 4,500 people. It's a lot. And then there was something going every night. And I think it's okay to take time for yourself. I have a colleague who she will go and get a blowout after everything's done, because she just wants to go and make her hair look great. And then I think that just, taking that time for yourself. I've been known to, most of the conferences I attend in LA, I've been known to take a few days and go to Disneyland. Now, granted, that's not necessarily, applicable for everybody in the industry, but find out what is for you. For me, maybe it's roller coasters. I don't know. And maybe it's door dashing food to the silence of my room. And to be honest, it's probably more that than anything. Because when I go to a trade show, I couldn't even tell you if the TV works most of the time, because I don't even turn the TV on. I don't need something else talking to me. I just want to retreat to the room and be quiet and DoorDash my food and read or something like that, or listen to a podcast. But I think it's, going to depend on what people like. But I think it's just finding that thing that allows you to decompress. Maybe it's just a quiet call to your loved ones at the end of the day. Maybe it's just, walking next door and buying yourself a steak. I don't know. But I think that when you are on like that and you're introverted, just factor in a tiny bit of time and take that time for yourself and use it however would serve you best.
I think that's all really great advice. I typically do at least once a conference DoorDash. Like I will go out sometimes, but sometimes I don't want to do that. And I love that the people I go to shows with most often know the difference. Like if I say I'm going back to my room, there's no convincing me to go out. If I'm going out, I will do it. I'm like, I can make those decisions. But I do think that's really important. Sometimes I just want like good food, like the food that like my husband doesn't like to eat. And so let me just order that when I'm gone and be able to enjoy that.
Right.
I always schedule a massage when I get back home within the days following a trade show.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And like a
I love that.
90-minute deep tissue or like hot stone massage. And it helps so much because I mean, I don't know about you, but like I'm always carrying like my laptop and like 800 other things on my back. And so it is painful when I return home. So like that's something I've started doing. And I suggest it to everyone that can do that because it really is helpful. And then one thing that TMSA has started doing, which so I know you weren't at Elevate last year, but we have a wellness room now that is designed kind of for this like moment of peace. And so last year was the first year we did it, and there's like lavender spray in there. We tried to do lower lighting this year. We'll do it. Last year it didn't work out the way we wanted it to, but we have like coloring pages and stress balls and like putty you can play with, and it's all designed for people who just like kind of just need a minute to themselves. And I definitely utilized it even as the event planner. I would go in there, like sometimes you just need that minute to like decompress and take a minute to just do something else or be quiet or meditate. We did pull like a workout ball and a yoga mat in there as well. So people got to just like take that minute to decompress. And that was something I was really proud of that we incorporated into the show because yeah, sometimes you just need a minute. And I know if I go to my room in the middle of a trade show, I'm not coming back out. At least for a long time. So I like as an event planner, I thought about that and was like, okay, let's give them a space where they can have that moment of calm and then go right back in without retreating to their room. So
I think that's great. I'm sure you'll find me in there because I think when you're introverted a little bit and you have to like flip that switch and be extroverted, you just need something. Maybe it's just 10 minutes, you know?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I have one last question for you, something I ask everyone, and that's if you could go back in time and advise a younger Jennifer anything, and this could be personally or professionally, when would you go back to and what would you tell her?
Gosh, I would probably go back to I don't know. Post-college Jennifer, maybe new to the industry Jennifer. And I would say try to find a mentor, really. And the reason why I say that is because I didn't necessarily have a mentor. I was new to the industry and even new to the town. And it was hard to find that. But when I did find that person, she made me uncomfortable. Like she pushed me to do things, to be the extrovert and to turn things on and do things that made me uncomfortable, which I think has made me successful in my career. And I would, being the introvert that I am, I would have never done them. I would have never done this podcast. I would have never, considered speaking before. I would have never done many things throughout my career, even probably attending trade shows. I don't know that I would have been comfortable doing that if she had not championed me, and by say champion me, pushed me to do things that made me uncomfortable. And I sometimes think you need that. I think you need that mentor that is going to like guide you through the industry and push you outside your comfort zone to do things that in the end will, maybe make you uncomfortable, but they're going to make you more successful in your career because, people see, oh, you can do XYZ, or I talked to her at this location, she really knows her stuff, or she has this history in the industry. But if I was just sitting back at my desk punching away at a computer for the last 19 years, I don't know how long it's been, but you wouldn't get as many career opportunities as I have now. And so I'm thankful for her. She'll know who she is if she listens to this. I'll make sure she does. But I think you need that person who's going to force you to be a little bit uncomfortable and do the hard things, as we would tell our kids, because it's going to lead to more success in the future, I think.
Absolutely. I think that's really great advice. Mentorship is such a huge part of how we can move forward. And also, like, if you are in the second, third, fourth stage of your career, like, be open to mentoring and ushering the next generations in. So love that. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Excited to see you at Elevate. A few things going on at TMSA in case people don't know. We have our recognition program for our Purpose Awards, Trailblazers Awards, and Rising Stars category open now through the end of the month. So those submission areas will close March 28th. So if you have a purpose-driven or sustainability-driven program, submit by March 28th. Same with Best of Marketing Sales campaigns. Rising Stars is for people who've been in the industry 5 years or less. So really, really excited about that. And then join us next week on The Move. Next Wednesday, March 26th, we'll have Eileen Dabrowski on the show, who has been in the industry for a long time, but we just recently announced her as the new Programs and Membership Director here at TMSA. So we're really excited to dive in and talk about all of the things that we hope to achieve together now that she is at TMSA headquarters. But thank you, Jennifer, for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure to talk to you and look forward to seeing your session at Elevate. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And we'll see you in
Sounds
June.
good.